Hello, everyone. Welcome to Clarity Sessions with GI. GI simply stands for Gentle Inspirer for those of you who are joining us for the first time. And I always say Gentle Inspirer means the voice of clarity in the world of confusion. And what is the purpose of our Clarity Sessions? It is to help you see clearly, to decide better, and to move with purpose. And so, welcome to today's Clarity Sessions. We started Clarity Sessions with a conversation about finding what was holding you back. And we went into that conversation talking about the soul because we wanted to locate the place where that experience happens, which is the soul. And we talked about finding what holds you back by having a conversation about the soul, the properties of the soul. And last week, we started talking about the levels of transformation and we listed 5 things that you can begin to do to trigger the transformation in your soul. I'm not going to go into all that conversation. For those of you who missed it, you can check out the videos on the video section and you can look at the first clarity session and the second clarity session. And I said that today we're going to talk about how language transforms the soul, or how your words transform your soul. That's the conversation we're going to have today. To take this conversation further, there's something I want you to think about. Now, there was this play written by Shakespeare. He said that all the world is a stage, and all men and women are merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. And while I'm not so much interested in demystifying what that quote means, but I want you to pay attention to the first line and the third line. The first line said that all the world is a stage. And the third line says, and they have their exits and their entrances. And that quote came into my mind a few days ago when I was thinking about what I wanted to, or how I wanted to have this conversation today. And a question came into my mind, and it's this analogy that I'm going to use to go into the conversation we have for today. Now, if all the world is a stage, and every stage has a backstage, and by world here, I'm talking about physical reality. If physical reality is the stage, then what is the backstage? And if you think about the stage where, of course, actors display their plays, you would agree with me that the backstage is where certain preparations are done. There are certain things that happen in the backstage that is not immediately in the view of the audience, right? So there are a lot of stuff going on the back in the backstage. The actors prepare in the backstage, they get prepared. Sometimes they rehearse their lines. In fact, even sometimes their rehearsals happen at the backstage. And then when it's time for the play, they have to transfer themselves to the stage. And so, using that analogy, if physical reality is a stage, then what is the backstage of physical reality? Just to answer that question in simple terms, and I want you to think about that, or think about this conversation in the frame of reference I'm trying to create with the stage analogy, how the physical reality is a stage, and then there has to be something that is the backstage. For the lack of a better word, I would use this to describe it. The physical reality is the seen realm, and that is the physical stage, right? And the unseen realm is what we call the backstage. That means that while we interact with things in the physical reality, there is a backstage that we cannot see with our physical eyes. But just because we can't see the backstage with our physical eyes does not mean that the backstage does not exist. There is a backstage and there are things happening in the backstage. And some of the things we begin to see in physical reality came from the backstage. And I want you to think about it like this: what is in the backstage? And whatever is in the backstage, how do we transfer those things from the backstage to the front stage? That means that there has to be some sort of technology for us to convey the things in the backstage into the physical stage, the physical reality. In this case, from the unseen reality, unseen realm, to the seen realm, or the physical reality. And so I was thinking about how I was going to describe to you what words are, or what a speech is, or what speech is, the fact that human beings have the capability for speech. And I was going to use an analogy to describe it to you, that there is the unseen realm, and there are realities in the unseen realm, and there are realities in the physical realm. And the technology that is used to convey things from the backstage, which is the unseen realm, to the seen realm, is what you call the technology of speech. Right, that means that the world is a stage, physical reality is a stage, and there is a backstage, which is the unseen reality, and the technology that we need to convey things from the backstage to the front stage, or from the unseen realm to the seen realm, is speech. Speech is that conveying technology that we use to transfer things from the backstage to the physical stage, or from the unseen reality to the seen reality. And I'll give you an instance for you to think about. Have you ever had an idea and that idea was in your head? My question to you is, that idea you had in your head felt very real to you. Where was it located? In simple terms, it was located in the unseen realm of your mind. And I don't want to go into the dimensions or to explain what that means, or the dimensions of the unseen realm in terms of the unseen realm of the mind, or the unseen realm of actual reality. I don't want to get into that in this conversation, but what I want you to see is that you had an idea once and it was invisible to the physical eyes. People could not see it, but that idea was in your head, but it was real to you. That was the backstage of your physical realities. And then let's say you put resources together to take the idea from concept stage, from idea stage into physical reality. Let's say you were building a product, or you wanted to build a business, or you had an idea for something, right? It was existing somewhere, right? But through your action, through your words, maybe through conversations with people, and through certain targeted actions, you are able to translate that idea into physical reality. It's the same thing with speech. Speech is that technology for conveying things from the unseen realm to the seen realm, from the backstage to the stage that everybody can see. And I want to say something here as it relates to action as well, because I wanted to just define that. While there are certain actions that you need to carry out, physical actions that involve your body, you need to carry out to take an idea to bring it into reality. I want you to consider very strongly that behind every physical action, is that speech or words. Think about it like this: when you have thoughts in your mind, it is your mind speaking. Thoughts are your mind speaking. Words are your mouth speaking. And then action is your body speaking. At the foundation of all of this is one common thing: words. So life is all about words. Everything that we see on earth today, you can comfortably say that these are the product of words. Even wars, when people fight, when there are wars between nations, you can actually trace it to words. That is to say that when people begin to act, that means that there are words behind that action, because action is the body talking. And I just wanted to get that clear here, that we're talking about speech, that everything on earth can actually be broken down into the minutest component of words and speech. In defining speech, speech or word, speech is the technology and words is the tool, right? Because to speak, we need words, or to speak, we give forth words. So speech is the technology for conveying things from the unseen realm to the seen realm. I don't want to get into the idea of what words are, but I like the Hebrew idea. And I know for so many people, some people have different worldviews, but I subscribe to the biblical worldview. So most of my ideas, all of my ideas come from the biblical worldview. And a lot of people might ask, what is the source of speech? And some might argue in terms of evolution or the evolutionary sources of human speech. But I believe that speech is a divine attribute, because God created man, and because God speaks, he created man in his image, and therefore man can speak. And man is the only species on earth that can speak. So speech here is a divine attribute. And if we have the time, we'll get into the implications of the fact that speech is a divine attribute. But I wanted to define words, and not to get too technical here. I'm going to give the idea without necessarily giving you the technical definition of what word means. There are two different concepts I want to use to say it in my own words, what words essentially are. And of course, we can define what words are, but the Hebrew idea is interesting to me. There are two words in the Hebrew, which is amar and dabar. Essentially means to speak, to utter, to command, to promise, anything that has to do with the vocalization of sound waves, or the vocalization of intention through sound waves. That's essentially what it is. But you see, those two words have some interesting derivatives from it that I want to use to communicate my idea today. For For example, Amar, there's a particular masculine derivative of that word, which essentially means, or the idea behind the meaning is that words can be seen. Okay, the derivative is the word amir, amir, which means the top or the summit of a tree. And the idea in the Hebrew they are trying to communicate is that that word means you can see it as metaphorically as the fruits of a tree. And so that word somehow communicates to us that words are like the fruits of a tree. The words of a man's mouth are like the fruits of the man's life. And there are so many scriptures that goes to explain that particular concept, but I don't want to get into that in this particular conversation. And the word dabar as well. I don't want to also get into the other definitions, but there is this particular idea I want to communicate. The idea of dabar means to formalize something, something that was previously a subconscious intuition, something that was invisible. You dabar. That means you formalize it. It speaks to the idea of taking something that is invisible and bringing it into the visible realm. And also, the word dabar means a thing or an event. That means that when a man speaks, what comes out of his mouth are not just airwaves. That what comes out of his mouth is an event, is a thing, is a tangible thing. And I was thinking about it a few days ago when I was thinking about this conversation. When the idea existed in your head, it felt real to you, but to some other person, it wasn't real. The question is, if the idea existed in the unseen realm, did it exist as something tangible, but that thing is tangible in its own dimension? You see, because when we talk about tangibility, something can be tangible in one dimension, but not tangible in another dimension, or tangible in one reality, but not tangible in another reality. The basic idea is that those things that we speak as words, we see them as just airwaves, but they're actually things. They're actually realities, tangible realities in their own dimension. And through the technology of speech, we can take those things from the invisible dimension and bring it into the visible dimension. Case in point, your thoughts. Your thoughts are things. They are the whole conversation. There could be a whole conversation happening inside your mind, and you're just staring somebody in the face with your mouth closed. But that thing is happening inside of you. But the moment you open your mouth with intention and begin to speak, you are taking that event or that thing happening inside of you, and then you are bringing it into the physical realm where people can experience it. And we experience it through sound waves. Do you understand? What I want you to see here is that words are no ordinary things. Words are real things. And that is why somebody can say something to you and it causes pain on your inside and even move you to action, because words are events and words are things. And so let's get the definition very clear here. And speech is the technology to bring those things from the invisible to the visible, right? And so to define words, there's a particular metaphor I like to use to define words, and I know most people actually will agree to that definition, which is words are seeds. And when we think about seeds, what do we think about? We think about seed, soil, tree. That means that if you take that seed and plant it in the ground and water it over time, even if you don't water it, of course, there could be nutrients in the soil, water in the soil, and that particular tree would dig roots downward to find the water table, depending on the genetics of that particular seed. But the simple idea is that once you take a seed and plant it in the ground, it will start to germinate. When we envision words like seeds, we are simply saying that words are things that can be planted on the soil. But my question now is, if words are seeds and can be planted in a soil, what are the things that we consider as soil? And of course, the immediate answer that will come to your mind is that the mind of man is a soil, or the heart of man is a soil. And that once you speak a word into somebody, once you speak a word to somebody, it goes and plants in their mind or in their subconscious mind. Now, that is true. That is true. But that is not the only soil for words. And I want you to just follow me in this conversation, because we're also going to get into it. I'm going somewhere with this particular conversation. Words are seeds, and that means that seeds have to be planted somewhere to germinate. And one of the environments where seeds can be planted or words can be planted is our heart or our subconscious mind or your conscious mind, whichever you choose to agree with. But now, what are the other farmlands or soils where words can be planted? Not to sound mystical, but you see, the cosmos is a soil, a sort of soil for words. And that is why you have concepts like karma. Not everybody believes in karma, but the idea is that life is about seed and harvest. If whatever you sow, you reap, whether it's in action or in words. If I say something to somebody or I do something to somebody, how do I get it back? That simply means that that particular thing I did or said was planted somewhere. First of all, in the heart of the person or in the hearts of people that were observing, right? And also in the cosmos, in the universe, as it were. That means that the words that you speak do not only land in your heart, it lands in the hearts of the hearers, and also it's present in the airwaves. That's the concept of seeing the cosmos as a farmland. That means every word you've spoken is recorded somewhere in the cosmos. That's the idea. And in fact, Jesus said something like this, that every idle word you speak will be given account of in the last day. That communicates the idea to you that everything that has come out of your mouth is stored somewhere. There is a record of it somewhere, not just in your subconscious, not just in the consciousness or the subconsciousness of other people, but also in the cosmos. In the cosmos. And I don't want to get into the ancient Near East worldview of what our world looks like to drive this point, but for the purpose of this conversation, I want you to consider the cosmos, the universe, as also a soil where your words are planted. This is how words behave. When you open your mouth and say something, that word travels. That thing, something comes out of your mouth, an event comes out of your mouth, a reality comes out of your mouth that has a life of its own. And what happens is that thing you've spoken out begins to travel the earth. What it's trying to do is, as it travels the earth, it is pulling resources that is required to bring about the things you've spoken. Every time you speak words, that word travels. It doesn't only travel backwards, it travels forward. Now, if there are people around there who heard you say it, it will travel into their minds also and also travel into the cosmos. And that particular word you've spoken will go around pulling resources to bring about that thing you've said, whether it's something negative or something positive. And I want you to really take this worldview because words have consequences. Words are living things and they are powerful, they are active. And anytime it is spoken, right, it goes to achieve the thing that was spoken. And I'll get into that very shortly. So I just essentially want you to see that words are agents of transformation, they are agents of change, they are agents of consequences. When you speak words, something happens. You might think that you are the only one that heard it, or that the person you spoke to is the only person that heard it, but there are also forces in life that also received your words. And your words in itself has a life of its own, sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy that gathers resources to bring to pass the things you've spoken. Right? That's how words behave. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that words or speech take things, or words or speech takes things from concealment to revelation. It takes things from hidden form to seen form. It takes things from the backstage to the front stage. And those words are not ordinary things. They have a life of its own. It's active and it brings about everything that you've spoken. And also it travels in different directions. One of the directions is that it travels into your subconscious and it travels into the consciousness of the other people that you've spoken it to, and it also travels into the cosmos, gathering resources to bring about the thing that you've spoken. Right? What does words do when you speak them, or what does a speech do when you speak them to you or to other people that hear it? There are two things. There are two things that I want to say concerning that. The first thing is that whenever you speak a word, that word activates what that word represents in the hearer, in you or in the hearer. For example, if you say orange, that word orange activates what it represents in your mind. If you say orange, the other person might see the fruit or the color. Do you understand what I'm saying? That essentially, when you speak a word, that word activates what that word represents in the mind of the hearer. If you say something like strength or strong, or if I say you are strong, it will activate in your mind the picture of what strength is to you and also activates the reality of strength in you. That's what word does. And remember that I said that speech is divine, words are divine because it came from divine origin, and because of that, it has some sort of life on its own. Whenever you speak a word, that word activates what it represents in the consciousness of the hearer. If you say strong or strength, it activates that image and the reality inside of you. Every word you speak activates something in you and in the hearers, whether you realize it or not. And this is something I always say. Just because you do not believe a reality does not mean that that reality in itself is not efficacious. For example, gravity. Even if you don't believe in gravity, gravity still exerts its influence on human beings. If you don't believe in entropy, exerts its influence in the human space. If you don't believe in God, or if you don't believe the devil exists, if you don't believe all those things, it doesn't change the fact that if that reality exists, that reality exerts influence in the human space, right? Whenever you speak a word, that word activates what it represents in your mind, in your consciousness, or in the consciousness. And that is why you can use words to influence people. You can use words to persuade people. You can use words to move people to action, because the moment they hear those words, it is activating what the word represents in them and moving them to action. Remember, I said that action is the body talking, and thinking is the mind talking, and of course, speaking words is your mouth speaking. Essentially, everything speaks and everything hears. The moment you speak words, what those words represent is activated in the mind and also in the cosmos. Right? That's one of the ways that words behave. Now there's another idea that I want to communicate to you, and I want you to be patient with this and pay attention to what I'm about to say so that it doesn't fly over your head. You know, I'm going to read uh, a scripture for you from the Bible, Isaiah 55, just to buttress the point that I want to make now. And I want you to pay attention. Look at this. It says, and before I read this, remember I said that I believe in the biblical worldview, and I believe that God is the origin of speech and words. Therefore, if we have speech and words, it has divine attributes. Now, we can misuse it and it works against us. We can use it well or it works for us. But I want you to understand that essentially, if something has a particular origin, that thing would have the characteristics of its origin. Now, this is what God says in Isaiah 55, verse 11. He says, shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth? It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it. Remember, he said, it will accomplish the thing that I please. Underline that. And then it will essentially explain the same thing. And it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it. Now, I want you to underline the word which I please and the thing which I sent it. I want you to see the idea here. When you talk about something in which you please, or something that pleases you, or something in which you please, one of the ideas you're communicating is desire. I'm going to replace that word with desire. It says, and it shall accomplish my desire. And then the other one is, it shall prosper in the thing whereunto I sent it. The idea I want you to see here is that whenever you speak, first of all, before you speak, there is the concept of desire. Let's say you have a particular desire in your mind. That desire can lead you to say things. For example, you see a lady you like or a guy you like, and you have a desire for them. That desire can move you to action, and part of that action is to speak to them. That means that from that desire came words that you spoke to that person. And so he says, it will accomplish the thing in which I please, which is the thing which I desire, and prosper in the thing which I sent it to. What I'm essentially trying to show you here is that the desire that you have becomes the purpose of the words you speak. If you have a desire in your heart, and out of that desire came forth words, the purpose of those words is the desire that bettered it. That means that every desire becomes the purpose of what the words. What I'm trying to help you see is that you can have a desire for someone, and that desire triggers you to just say a couple of things. Now, the things that you say may conceal the desire, because you can use words to conceal desire. The things that you are saying may conceal the desire, but the desire is the substructure of that particular thing you are speaking, You are hiding your desire with your words. But you see, because life is spiritual, whenever you speak words, the desire is embedded into those words. And even if those words conceal the desire or does not represent the desire exactly, those words take on the desire as purpose. And so, what it accomplishes, the thing it accomplishes in the person is the desire that you had, even if the words conceal the desire that you had. Essentially, what I'm saying to you is that when you speak out of desire and you speak words to somebody, what that word does in the person is not necessarily the semantics of the words you've said, it is the desire behind the words you've said. And what that word will go to accomplish that desire in that person. That is why, for example, you've spoken to certain people, they were smiling, they were smiling with you, they were saying words that were okay, normal, but you started sensing in your heart, oh, this person doesn't like me. I feel this person is malicious or envious. You started feeling something about that person that does not line up with the words they are saying. It is this reality I'm trying to explain to you, that no matter what words you use to conceal your desire, what is translated into that person or the thing that is accomplished in that person is the desire that bettered it. And this is a very strong principle that I want you to pay attention to. Desire becomes the thing accomplished in the person, regardless of the semantics or the structure of words that was used to convey that desire. You might be hiding that particular desire behind superfluous words, but that desire accomplishes itself in that person. If you are speaking out of hatred, people can sense it. You might be saying nice words or lovely words, but they can sense the hatred in your heart. You can be saying words that are not so intelligent, but people can sense the love in your heart. It's a principle I want you to take note of, that words accomplish the desire that bettered it. And that's what this scripture is saying essentially, right? It would accomplish the thing in which I please and prosper in that which I sent it. The moment you speak a word, the desire behind the word or the intention, the motive, the force behind those words begin to what? Accomplish its purpose in that person who heard it. I hope you got this. And that is one of the things that speech or words does to you or to the hearers. And while you that is speaking those words know exactly what your intentions or your desires are, right? And the person may not know because on surface level because of the words you're using, but essentially their soul will get it, their spirit will get it, their soul will synthesize that particular word you've spoken and extract the feelings or the desire behind it. And this is what I call mental digestion, and I teach it in my community, the growth circle, that when you sit in front of a TV, for example, watching a movie, what, of course, the movie might be funny, for example, but what your mind takes out of that movie at the end of the day is the intention behind that particular movie. And that intention is communicated, of course, in the story and in the soundtrack used to communicate that particular story. All the elements that were put into that story communicate that feeling to you. That's why sometimes you finish watching a movie and maybe the movie is a comedy movie, but at the end of the day, you are left with something else. It is the desire behind that production. It is the desire behind those words. And because words are spiritual, words are divine, words carry life, and it accomplishes the desire or the force behind those particular words. Right? That's what speech does. I'm just going to use these two things as an example. I don't want to say more than that. But these are, among other things, these are one of the two of the things that speech does inside of you. And why am I saying this? I'm saying this so that we can have the understanding of how powerful words are. And I don't want to get into the many instances or ideas or examples I have in my mind because of time. But I want you to understand that words are very powerful and that words travel direction by directional. It travels backwards and it travels to the people that hear and also travels to the cosmos. And it is living and active until it accomplishes that in which you please or the purpose for which you sent it. Whenever you speak a word, that word doesn't rest till it accomplishes the reason for which it was born. And when you understand this, you'll be more careful with the words you've spoken. I know all of us at some point might have spoken words that we didn't really think about or were careless words, but with this knowledge, you can begin to realign the way you speak, especially when you want to achieve the transformation of your soul and those of others around you. Right, we're going to get into another level. I want to talk about the levels of speech and then the conditions for certain kind of speech and then how to add weight to your words. I won't go into the last one very deeply. I'm just going to give you one example because I thought about it and it's a very deep and intense conversation that we cannot accomplish in just a few minutes. But maybe at another time in this series, I will get into that even more deeply. But let's talk about the levels of speech. So you have 5 levels of speech, and the lowest of all that is negative speaking. Now there's negative speaking, and then after negative speaking, there's what is called idle speaking. Idle speaking is things like gossip or words that do not serve any good purpose or that does not serve any purpose for the hearers and for the community at large or the world at large. And then, of course, there is neutral speech, which is normal speech that doesn't necessarily have any polarity, as it were. Just simple gist, for example. Some gist can be negative, some gist can be idle speaking, but they're just neutral speaking. For example, let's say when you check up on somebody, how you doing, and things like that, that can be neutral speaking. And then there is positive speech, and then there is divine speech. I'm not going to get into the other four. I'm going to just focus on negative speaking because we're talking about the transformation of the soul. While, yes, in transforming the soul, positive speech and divine speech should also be a factor in your speaking. But I want to address negative speaking. A lot of times we think that negative speaking only affects the person who hears it. Yes, it affects the person who hears it. But I want to show you the gravity of negative speaking and how that it affects the person who hears it and the way it also affects you. Remember, anytime you speak, it travels in different directions. One direction is you, the other direction is the people that heard it, and then of course the cosmos. And then if the people that heard it also spread it, it travels to other people's words travel multidirectionally. Let's talk about negative speaking. Negative speaking essentially are words that you speak that bring you down or that brings the other person down. I just want to explain it in that very simple layman term. Negative speaking are things that are not healthy for human consumption. They are not healthy for your mind. They're not healthy for the minds of other people. Negative speaking, for example, speaking in a derogatory fashion to somebody that is standing in front of you, or maybe not in front of you. For example, on the internet, you get a lot of people speaking negatively about other people. Now that's negative speaking, using very vicious, violent terms to describe people, all that negative speaking. How does it relate to the transformation of your soul? Like I said, when you speak words, generally it travels first backwards, but it also travels in the direction of the person that hears it. And because words are things, words are living and active, words are events, when you speak those negative words, the law is that those words have to accomplish those things. And that is why you've heard of stories of people who were cancelled on the internet or people spoke a lot of negative words to them and they ended up ending their lives. And it's a very sensitive thing to talk about. How is it that words can accomplish such things? That's essentially what I'm trying to say here, that words are things. Just because it comes out as wind from your mouth does not mean that it's not a tangible reality. Just because you can't see with your physical eyes that you've created an event, you've created a thing that will go about to accomplish its purpose until finality. Just because you can't see it does not mean that that's not the case. That is why when you speak to somebody, they can feel the pain, or that particular word can steer them towards action. Words have caused wars. So whenever you speak negative words, it does negative things to the people who hear it. But guess what? It does not only do negative things to the soul of the person who hears it, it does a double damage to your soul. And that's what most people don't realize. The moment you say something negative, it comes back to you because you are the first recipient of everything that you say. And let me describe it this way. Have you ever been in an argument with a friend and after that argument, you went back home and then your mind started replaying that argument and you started remembering all the things you wanted to say? Oh, I wish I said this particular thing. If I had said it, I would have won that argument. How is it that your mind is replaying the conversation you had, the argument you had, and it's pointing to you, oh, you could have said this at this point and won this argument? What happened there? It simply tells you that your mind was recording that conversation. Your subconscious was recording that conversation. It wasn't your conscious mind that was recording it. It was your subconscious. Every time you get into a conversation, every time you get into any kind of conversation argument, your subconscious mind is recording. It records it in your own voice, the things you said and the things the person said. And when your subconscious is replaying it as though it is its own reality. Let's say you say to the person, you are a stupid person. Your mind records it as you are a stupid person. Your mind doesn't record you pointing the person. Your mind just records you are a stupid person. So when your subconscious wants to replay it, what is your subconscious replaying? You are a stupid person. Your subconscious is saying to you, you are a stupid person. But you intended to say it to the other person. Right? So every time we say anything to somebody, our subconscious mind records it and then repeats it to you in second person. You are a stupid person. And that thing plays in your subconscious and you're not even aware of it. The same thing as when you speak positive words, whatever word you speak, your subconscious mind records it in second person. And when you are sleeping, when you are in sleep state, it replays it. And whenever it's replaying it, it's trying to arrange it. What the subconscious mind does is when you are sleeping, it takes all the things that you've experienced in the day and begins to archive it. That's why sometimes when you are sleeping, you have a dream about your day. Or sometimes you have a dream about what happened a year ago. What your subconscious mind is trying to do is maybe it's received new information that it can categorize with that thing that happened 1 year. So it brings it to the fore and archives this one and joins it together. Your subconscious mind does not record information in a linear fashion, it records it in blocks of similar stories. It's called the association principle. It looks for things that are similar to what was said or what was recorded and records it together or stores it together. That's why sometimes you dream about something that happened many years ago. Now, sometimes it could be a divine act, but sometimes it's just your mind archiving information. Sometimes when you dream about it, or sometimes when you recall it in your sleep, it's your mind archiving it. So every time you speak, and anything you speak is recorded in your subconscious. And sometimes it could be 3 months later, 6 months later, your subconscious mind will begin to reorganize the files in your mind. And then it brings up this file where you are saying you are stupid, and it says it in second person, therefore calling you. And then it takes those words and tries to now materialize it in your life. Because what your subconscious tries to do is to take everything you've said as seed, it doesn't filter it, it arranges it in story format and then begins to bet it into realities in your life. It begins to use it to attract circumstances in your life. So everything in your subconscious arranges itself to attract its similar equivalent in the physical realm. What happens in this backstage of your mind, right, attracts things that are similar in the front stage of your life. Your subconscious is essentially arranging itself to attract similar things in it in the physical realm. And that is why you might have a particular mindset of people or a particular mindset about men or women. You find out that you keep attracting people who will support that stance you have. Listen to people's feedback about their relationships or the kind of people they meet. You will observe the pattern. Sometimes you realize that they keep meeting the same people. The reason is because you have a particular mindset of people in your subconscious. You believe that people are like this, people are not trustworthy, people are this and people are that. Your subconscious mind takes that as information, rearranges it, and then tries to attract people that are like that into your life. And that is why you keep meeting the same kind of people. Check all your relationships. You will see that most of the people around your life have one or two similar traits to each other. That's just your subconscious mind giving you what you've given it. Every word that you speak realizes itself in your life in physical reality, whether you spoke it to yourself or to another person. It is even more powerful when you say it to another person with very strong emotions. When you say it to another person, it records in second person. When you say it to yourself, sometimes it takes your subconscious mind time to ingest it because of authority. And I don't have time to. Maybe in the Q&A, I will have time to explain it further. Let me ask us this question. Why is it that sometimes we say positive affirmation over ourselves and our minds does not record it very fast? But when we say positive affirmation to other people or negative things to other people, it records it very fast. It remembers it very fast. It has to do with authority. Let me explain it this way. When you are the type that uses words carelessly, your soul will discount your own words to yourself about yourself. But when you say things to people with emotionally charged words, your subconscious mind takes it because it's that principle of ricochet. Once you say it, it fires back into your subconscious. But when you try to sit down and say to yourself, I am strong and things like that, it looks as if your soul is not registering it. It's because of how you've used words over time. I'll get into this much later. When you speak to people, it records in your mind first. It also records in the person's mind, right? In the person's mind, and does damage to them, but it also doubly does damage to you as well. It does double damage rather to you whenever you say those things. And why am I saying this? I'm saying this essentially. This may not be what you expected to hear, but one of the ways to begin to use words to transform your soul is to change the way you speak to other people. That might sound counterintuitive, but practice it. This for the next 3 months. Intentionally begin to the only thing you say. Intentionally begin to say only positive words to people. Tell them something good about themselves. In fact, focus on telling people the good things you see or notice about them. You will notice that at the end of those 3 months, you will begin to feel good and better about yourself. Because the soul uses the words you speak to people as a measure of who you are. Your soul uses the words you speak to other people as a true measure of who you are. Not what you say about yourself. This is the kind of person I am. No. It uses the words you say to other people about themselves or about other people as a measure of who you are. That is why when you now want to turn around after saying negative words to people to now say positive words about yourself, your subconscious doesn't really, it discounts it. But when you now say negative words about yourself, your subconscious mind will catch it very strongly because that is more in line with what you're saying about others. When you say negative about others, gossip about others, degrade others, and you now turn to say positive words to yourself, your subconscious mind doesn't take it seriously because it doesn't represent what you're saying. Your subconscious mind uses the words you speak to others about themselves and about others as a true measure of yourself. And that is why when you now say negative words about yourself, your subconscious mind takes it faster than when you say positive words about yourself because you've had practice of saying negative things about other people. Your words about others, your words to others about themselves and others is a true measure of who you are in your subconscious recording or reckoning. That is why you cannot keep saying negative about other people or to other people and stay positive. You can never stay positive while thinking negative about other people or saying negative about other people. One sure way to begin to transform the state of your soul is to use your words to bless others, to use your words to commend others. That way, you begin to gather the authority. Your subconscious begins to see you as this person speaks positive. This person commends other people. This person speaks well of other people. The day you now speak well of yourself, your subconscious will grab it and say, yes, this is a true measure of who you are because whatsoever you've done to the least of my brothers shall be done unto you. It's a principle. It's a principle. It's the golden law. Whatsoever you want others to do unto you, do unto them. That's the way, that is the law that your subconscious operates on, the golden law. Let me reiterate it here. Your subconscious uses your words about others, your words to others, as a true measure of yourself. When you speak negative about people a lot and you try to speak positive about yourself, your subconscious will not take it. It won't catch on. But when you speak negative about others to others, and you now want to speak negative about yourself, your subconscious will agree because that is the true measure of yourself. Whatsoever you do unto others, that's what will be done unto you. Right? The measure of yourself is how you treat others. That is the law. And that is the law your subconscious works on. And that is why people talk about karma and things like that. It's really about that law of life. Your true measure is how you treat other people. Your subconscious treats you the way you treat others. If you want to begin to transform your soul, if you want to begin to transform your mind, one of the things you need to do is to begin to change your speech about others. Start there. Begin to change your speech about others. When you interact with other people, speak good about them, commend them, and then the day you now want to now say to yourself and stand in front of the mirror and give all those affirmations, your subconscious will take you seriously because your subconscious will discount your words when it is opposite of what you say to others. If you're always saying to others negative stuff about other people, about themselves, your subconscious can never take you seriously the day you want to speak positive about yourself. But the day you start to speak positive and good about people, then your subconscious will take you seriously on the day you want to affirm positive about yourself. This is why positive affirmation doesn't work for a lot of people. They think it's just standing in front of them, I'm brave, I'm strong. But in the next conversation, you're calling somebody idiot or stupid or things like that. No, it doesn't work like that. You must begin to sanctify your speech. You must begin to change the way that you speak so that your subconscious mind will now study the measure of the person that you are and will now begin to take your words seriously. If your words must begin to transform your soul, if all the things you say must carry weight in life, in the world, then you must transform your speech by dealing out or taking away negative speaking out of your vocabulary. Now, I'm going to talk about 7 conditions under which you can say negative things. Not say negative things, but I'm going to give you the context. There are certain times in relationships, negative things happen or people do stuff, and there are certain conditions under which you have to say them. There are 7 conditions that must be met for that to happen. Otherwise, you don't have any business saying any negative words, even if negative things have happened around you. And as a base law, always look for ways to speak positive about situations. And that is why it's not really good to be someone who criticizes people very easily. Your words must be measured. And if your subconscious sees that you are measured in your words, it will value your words when you speak it. And other people will begin to value your words because we are really connected. And people can perceive authority in somebody's words, in the signature of their words. It's not something that you can do mathematically, but we can perceive when somebody carries weight or when their words have density. And so these particular 7 conditions, I learned it from a Jewish rabbi on the laws of proper speech. If you must speak something negative about somebody or you must report something negative, there are certain conditions that must be accomplished. Number one, that particular thing is something you must see or hear yourself. You must have heard it yourself. It wasn't reported to you. It wasn't reported to you by another person. You saw it yourself or you heard it yourself. That's one condition that must be present for you to be able to report it. Number one, you have to see it yourself or you have to hear it yourself. And after seeing it or hearing it yourself, you must confirm that what you saw or what you heard was what you thought you saw or heard. You must confirm it. And all these conditions have to apply. And number three is before speaking negatively about that person, let's say maybe somebody did something, you heard it or you saw it and you confirmed that it was true, before you go ahead and tell somebody else or you report about it, you must try to speak to that person first about what they've said or what they've done. You must try to speak to them first. And these are some of the things that scriptures recommend, that if somebody does something against you or offends you, you speak to them first. And if they don't want to hear, take another person, speak to them. If they don't want to hear, bring witnesses on them, maybe take them to the community or to the church. These are laws before you can say, because the law is try as much as possible not to say anything negative about anybody. But we are human beings, sometimes we feel, but if at all we must report something negative, they are certain, or say something negative about somebody to other people, even if they actually did those things. These are the conditions that must apply. Number one is you have to see it or hear it for yourself. Number two, you have to confirm that what you thought you saw is what you really saw or heard. Number three, before speaking negatively, you must try to speak to the person first to see if you can speak to them and get them to see the error of their ways. And in the case where you have to report that thing, you must say only the truth. You must not exaggerate or you must not omit details or add details. You must say the truth. And number five, if at all you're going to say it, you must say it for constructive purposes only. Why are you saying it? Why are you telling others about what that person has done? Are you saying it so that they can help the person see the error of their ways so that they can become a better person? Are you doing it because you genuinely want to help them? Right? You must say it for constructive purpose only. You must not say it for personal interest. You must not say it because you're just trying to point that the person is a bad person, the person did something bad or negative, or to highlight yourself as a good person. No, you must say it for constructive purposes. If there is no constructive purpose, if there's personal interest, you must not open your mouth to utter that negative thing. Now, number six, let's say you are trying to report that thing or say that thing for constructive purposes. Before you say it, ask yourself, is there any other way I can achieve what I want to achieve without telling other people about this? You must ask yourself, is there any other way I can achieve the purpose of helping this person or showing this person the error of their ways without telling other people about it? You must ask yourself. If there is any other way to achieve that thing other than speaking it, then please use that method instead of saying it about that person or reporting that person or saying something. Now, this has nothing to do with heinous crimes like murder. No, we're talking about negative speaking, about people's actions or behavior or things like that. And then number seven, if you know that speaking negatively about that person or speaking that negative thing that they do, because if you're going to say something negative that somebody did, is negative speaking because they're speaking negative things, like you're describing something negative. If you know that by saying that thing to other people about that negative thing or that thing that that person did, if you know that by saying it, they will get a consequence or damage more than what that particular thing deserves, then you shouldn't say it. The idea essentially is that there must be conditions under which you must open your mouth and say, I saw this person did somebody, or do this, or I heard that this person did this. Negative speaking must not be part of our vocabulary. But if at all you have to report something, and it's important that it's very important. Now, if it's something that has to do with life and death, the death and life of somebody else, then by all means report to the authorities. But if it is a matter of gossip, somebody did something or somebody said something, or maybe you found somebody where you're not supposed to find them in a compromising position or things like that, it's not your job to say those things if these seven conditions are not met. The idea is that we must be measured in our speaking. We must be careful in the way we use our words because words are things, words are events, words have impact, words have effect, and words can push people to the edge. Words can transform the soul. And most importantly, the way you speak about other people is the way your subconscious measures you as a person. And so we must begin to use our words rightly. We must begin to apply the laws of the right speaking in order to get the result that we want. And why is this important for us to fix negative speaking? Because your soul cannot take you seriously if you speak negatively about other people on a daily basis. You gossip. You're looking for something about somebody that is not good to laugh about or to talk about, demeaning people, being derogatory, cancel culture, always looking for ways to pull down people as though you were the most perfect person on earth. And that's why I can never understand cancel culture. I can never understand it because those people canceling other people, they are usually the worst. Because you see, people who understand their frailty, or in fact, even people who have grace in them, right? You see them extend grace to other people. It's usually people who don't have grace in them that is always canceling people. They see that as an opportunity to vomit all the venom in their heart. They have the opportunity to vomit this venom towards people. And that really goes to show the heart that they have, the kind of viciousness that they have. And that's also a sign of a sick soul. I can never understand cancel culture. There are ways that the authorities have put in place to deal with situations. When people do things, there are proper ways to deal with it. But to now get into the conversation and use negative words to dismantle somebody's life is the highest form of hypocrisy that I've seen. People just talk and they talk because they don't really understand the power of words. And if you're that kind of person, your soul can never take you seriously. And your life will keep manifesting the reality that you are storing in your soul, all that viciousness, all that hatred. Your life will keep manifesting it in your circumstances. And that's why people like that will come and say, well, they've prayed, they've tried everything, but it's not working. You're not checking how you're treating people. You're not checking, and you need to check very carefully, right? Now, the final thing before we wrap up this conversation is how to make your words powerful, how to make it weighty. I thought about this particular segment in this conversation and I said to myself, I'm going to just say one thing because to discuss these things, first of all, we have to discuss what it means to be responsible of persuasion, for example. You need to have understood what it means to be responsible for words before you begin to use those secrets of persuasion or those tools to persuade people because persuading people is a big responsibility. Influencing people is a big responsibility. The fact that you can say something and people move is a very huge responsibility, and life will hold you responsible. God will hold you responsible for all the things you spoke that move people to action. Now, when you say something and people are moved to action, and maybe something happens and consequences come, in the true weight, in the true measure of that thing, that consequence belongs to you because it was your words that moved them to action. Now, they will also have consequences for themselves because they allowed themselves to be influenced by your words, but you are going to get the greatest consequence from that particular event. And so we must be responsible with the things we learn. When you learn how to use words, when you observe the secrets of words and you find how to make your words more persuasive or more weighty, you must hold it with utmost responsibility and use it for the right things. All right, so let me talk. I'm just going to give you one instance of how to make your words weighty because I said that your soul will never take you seriously if your words are not weighty. If you're the type that engages in negative speaking, your words have no authority to your soul. One of the things you need to do to make your words even more weighty, more serious, is remove negative speaking. If I look at those levels of speech, remove negative speaking, remove negative speaking, remove idle speaking, and focus more on maybe neutral speaking, positive speaking, and divine speaking. Right? What can we do now to make our words weighty? I'm just going to give one, and I want you to hold it with utmost responsibility. Let me say it like this: life, and when I say life, life and everything in it, the world and everything in it recognizes the signature of sacrifice. Sacrifice is one reality that life on earth and in the unseen realm recognizes. Life recognizes sacrifice. And even if it's not sacrifice to the very extreme, I'm talking about something that costs you something. Whenever you see people who have paid a price for what they are currently enjoying, you will know. Because it's a principle that governs life, it's the principle of sacrifice. Life acknowledges sacrifice. The soul acknowledges sacrifice. Sacrifice is one of the most powerful laws or principles in the known world and in the unknown world. Sacrifice. Where am I going with this? If you want your words to become weighty, every word you speak must cost you something. Every word you speak must cost you something. And if those words cost you something, it will land different in the hearts of those that are hearing it, even if they don't understand why they are so compelled by this person's words. The soul recognizes sacrifice, words that are bettered from sacrifice. And what I mean by that is words that were spoken that cost something. And what does it mean in practical terms? Before I say what it means in practical terms, let me give you an example. There is a practice that public speakers use to make their speech more powerful. One of it is drawn from what I'm about to show you now. Have you observed that sometimes when people are speaking, they get to a point, they pause, and then they speak? Or maybe somebody's in an interview and they ask them a question and they pause. And you can see visibly that they are processing what they're trying to say. You would notice that if you've been in that kind of situation, when the person pauses and is thinking about what they're about to say, like I'm doing now, you are anticipating what they're about to say. There's more anticipation for what they're about to say because somehow you recognize that this thing they're about to say, they're processing it and they're being careful with that thing they're saying. Now, that particular act of pausing is a mimic of this principle I'm about to show you. That word must cost you something because what you are displaying there in that pause and thinking is you are calculating how to answer what you are answering. And the soul recognizes that as these words you're about to speak cost you something. That means that you processed what you wanted to say, you took some things out, and you now answered these ones. That means that there is more from where this came from. The soul recognizes that, and the soul prepares for such words to land. That particular act or art is gotten from this principle I'm teaching you now, that those words must cost you something. Now, this is the way the Bible says it, that the heart of the righteous studieth to answer. That means that every word that comes out of your mouth is studied. You study it. This thing I'm about to say, is it profitable? Should I say it? Is it going to do good to the person? And things like that. Now, that's essentially what I'm saying. But what should it cost you? What should it cost you? Every time you open your mouth to speak and that word costs you your selfish interest or your ego, that word becomes more powerful. Every time your words cost you your ego or your selfish interest, your words become more powerful. How does that play out? Let's say somebody did something for you, or maybe somebody insulted you, for example, or said something negative to you, and you looked at them and then you are searching in your heart. If I answer this person, they might regret they might regret the fact that they spoke to me. I can say things to this person that would decimate them. But you know what? I'm going to put aside my ego because my ego wants to answer them. I'm going to put aside my selfish interest and I'm going to speak to them from a place of purpose. I'm going to speak to them from my value system, not from what my ego is telling me, not from my selfish interest. Your words will begin to gather power. Your words will begin to gather weight. Every time your words cost you your ego and your selfish interest, those words will become weighty. It's the same principle that is applied by preachers or teachers or or public speakers who, for just a 15-minute speech, they spend days studying, gathering their thoughts, editing it, deciding to say this because if I say this, it might cause trouble, or if I say this, it might cause this. Doing all those things is costing you something because you can just go into that speech and say everything that comes out of your mouth. But the moment that speech, that word costs you your ego, it costs you something. You spend some time thinking about what you would say. You spend some time praying about that message you preach. You spend some time meditating on it. Your words gather more power. Every time your words cost you something, it has more density and it will land stronger. One of the ways to begin to add density to your words, weight to your words, is to make sure that your heart studies to answer. That is why you shouldn't say everything that you feel. The first thing that comes to your mind, you just blot it out. If you are that kind of person, your words will not have weight in the ears of people. And that is why it looks as if you talk and people do not hear you. You speak. Even in your relationships, you are speaking, your friends are gathered and everybody's talking, and then you want to talk and it's as if they're not taking you seriously. It could be that your words are no longer weighty because you're the type that speaks words without counting the cost. So for every word you speak, you must count the cost of those words. And that word must cost you something, especially your ego and your selfish interest. Let your words be seasoned with salt, with grace, so that it will edify the hearers. If you're the kind of person that studies to answer, your words are measured. And that's why we value conversations with people whose words are measured. You can tell that what they are saying is not all they want to say. Those people have weightier words and their subconscious, their soul takes them even more seriously. And that is why we value people who don't talk too much. It's not because talking is bad or keeping silence is good. No, it's because people who don't talk too much are simply mimicking that principle without knowing. They don't like to talk too much. They say few words. And that's why we value people who say few words. It doesn't necessarily mean that people who say few words are always silent, are that deep or weighty. It's because that reality mimics this principle that I'm teaching you now. Study your words, study to answer. And one of the other reasons, apart from this, one of the other reasons you shouldn't say everything that comes to your mind first is because think about magnetism, for example. If you see that diagram, you have the positive charge and you have the negative charge, and then you see all this field around them. It creates charges. Essentially, from that electromagnetism, I want to show you something. When you are in a high emotional state, the words you speak has a magnetism to it. When you are in a low emotional state, the words you speak will have magnetism to it. Pay attention. That is why sad songs create effect in people. When you listen to sad songs, those sad words, it does something to your soul. It's because at a low emotional state, it has a very strong pull towards that direction. At a high emotional state, it has a very strong pull to that direction. The reason why you shouldn't say everything that comes to your mind first is because when things come to your mind on impulse, it comes with a surge of emotional energy. And if you speak the words immediately, it will have the effect of its charge. That's why you shouldn't speak. You shouldn't say anything that just comes to your mind, especially when you are in very high emotional states or low emotional states. That's why you always hear proverbs like this: "Don't make a promise when you are too happy or you are too sad, or you are too happy or too angry." In those very far polar emotional states, and that's why you shouldn't open your mouth to talk when you are depressed, when you are sad, when you are anxious, when you are fearful, when you are panicking. When you are in those low emotional states, try not to talk. That's the best time to keep silent. Right? When you are in very high emotional state, I know the next thing you want to do is to speak, but also try as much as possible to measure your words, except you use those high emotional states to speak positive words, or even those low emotional states to speak positive words. That's why when you're in a low emotional state, and even in that low emotional state, you summon positive words and start speaking over yourself, it has more power because you are speaking it at a state where you have a lot of charge around you. Do you understand this? Whenever you are in those polar states, try as much as possible not to speak. But when you are neutral at equilibrium, then you can speak measured. High emotional state, low emotional state, very careful. Why? Because at very low emotional states, when you begin to speak or when you begin to act in those low emotional states, remember that action is your body speaking. When you're in those low emotional states and you begin to act, you pick up habits. So it's easy for people to pick up habits at very polar emotional states. If you're in a high emotional state, it's very easy for you to pick up a habit. If you're in a very low emotional state and you begin to act, it's very easy for you to pick up habits. People pick up habits when they're in very polar emotional states or very extreme emotional states. Sorry, that's the word, extreme emotional states, and they begin to act or speak in those states. That's why when you're in those polars, please be very careful, or in those extremes, be very careful what you say and what you do. A lot of people have picked up habits when they were in very low emotional state that they couldn't break up, because those habits you speak, right, get weaved into your subconscious with the attendant force and energy. That's the principle of life. So to make your words very solid, let those words cost you something. Let it cost you your pride. Let it cost you your ego. Let it cost you your selfish interest. And let those words be measured. Let them be studied. Will it do good? Is it good in this situation? Even if it will do good, is it good in this situation for all parties involved? When you become measured and intentional with the words you speak, when you speak, the way you speak, your soul will begin to value your words, such that when you now begin to speak words over your life, it begins to take root strongly. This is the principle behind authority. When people are in authority over you and they speak over you, your subconscious recognizes it and it takes it. But guess what? Even if you take those words then and you don't take those words of authority spoken over you to now begin to speak over your life, then you won't get any results. Right? To transform your soul, you must understand the power of words. You must understand the responsibility that we have in using words. You must understand the consequences that come from it, and you must eliminate negative speaking from your vocabulary, especially about other people, because your soul uses the way you speak about other people, the way you speak to other people, as a measure of who you are. And when you now try to speak the opposite to yourself, your soul doesn't take it seriously. If you speak negative about other people, your soul would prioritize negative words over you more than positive words. But if you speak positive words about other people, your soul will prioritize positive words over you than the negative one. That's how to begin to strengthen your mind. That's how to begin to transform your soul. There are other ways we can begin to do that, but that's the conversation for other clarity sessions that we're going to have. In this particular series, I'm going to stop here and give you time to practice. See, all these things I've taught you today, try and practice it in the next 3 to 6 months and tell me how that went for you. And you'll begin to see a change that is happening in your soul, in your subconscious mind. Right. In this particular series, for this clarity session, I'm going to pause it here because the other parts requires a sort of responsibility from the hearers. And I think I'm going to wait a little bit as we grow this community to begin to now decide when to now talk about those other ones. But in this particular series, I'm going to stop here because in the month of September, all through the month of September, I'm going to be teaching about navigating forgiveness. Navigating forgiveness. And invite your friends to subscribe to this channel because we're going to be bringing so much value to you, and we're going to be discussing a lot of things that are relevant to your life and to your purpose and to you moving forward. Also, on Sunday, on Sunday, which is tomorrow, I'm going to do a Q&A live where I'll be answering some questions. If you have some questions, put it on the chat. I'm going to be reading it. And also, I'm going to be talking about the subconscious because in our previous live, somebody asked me to speak a little bit more about the subconscious. I'm going to start the live talking about the subconscious and then maybe answer other questions available, and then we'll take it from there. I hope you learned something. If this helped you, you learned one or two things from this, share with somebody, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that every time we have clarity sessions, you'll be notified. And I hope this helped you greatly. I'm looking forward to getting feedback from you, and let me know how it went. Remember, I always say that clarity precedes movement. I'll see you another time. Thank you very much for tuning in.